Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another episode on Let's Talk About Us with Uche. As usual, please, if you're new to my podcast, please make sure to subscribe, download, share with your friends and family. If you're new to my YouTube channel, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and please hit that bell notification so that anytime I upload a video, you'll be the very first to be notified. So a few weeks ago, like I mentioned, I wanted to start a mini-series on things you should invest in. So for today, I'm going to be talking about the second episode. I'm going to be starting the second episode on that miniseries. So today I'm going to be titling this Family. Again, for the second episode of this miniseries is Family. Things you should invest in is family. Going back to the definition of family, the traditional definition of family, I'm sure that we have the general understanding that family is a group of people that you were born into or raised with, or mom, dad, siblings, wife, husband, kids, and whatnot. Nuclear family, extended family, and all of that. I understand that, but me personally, I like to think that family is a little bit more than that. I believe that there's blood that is family, and there's also family that is not blood. The natural pattern, or at least the natural order of things, is that you're born into a family, mom and dad. In a traditional sense, you're raised in that family, mom, dad, they're there, you form your initial bonds with them, you form that initial relationship with them, they provide you with love, food, everything that you need for survival. And unfortunately, as we all know, this doesn't always happen in that traditional sense like that. It's not always as perfect. We would all wish that we were born into the perfect family where mother, father, or parents are present physically, mentally, and spiritually. They put you at a healthy pedestal. They're there to provide all those things that are necessary for a human being: love, attention, affection, support, protection, all those things. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. A lot of times, people are raised in single households, or single mothers, single fathers. A lot of people go through a lot of abuses, physical, mental, spiritual, and a whole lot of things happen. So that's not always the ideal case. So as a result of that, these people, they're born into these unfortunate families, seek to the world for protection, for validation, for all those things that your family is supposed to provide you initially. And unfortunately, this is quite dangerous because, like I've mentioned in some of my other episodes, the world is overflowing with so much filth. There's so much filth in the world, and it's so easy to get sucked into the diabetes of life. It tastes like sugar at first, because it's like the sky is your limit, especially when you're young and vulnerable. There's so much filth. There's so much bullshit in the world, and it just feels so good. But then by the time you realize it, it's probably a little too late. That this sweet has already consumed you and is already killing you physically and mentally and spiritually. And I'm going to use me for an example. I've talked about myself briefly in my previous episodes. So I was born in Nigeria, and I wasn't really born under the healthiest conditions. Now, my life wasn't all 100% horrible, because there's so many people with way more harsher backgrounds than me, But me personally, I was born, and as soon as I was born, my mom left the country. My dad wasn't even in the country prior to my birth. So I was born and raised apart from my parents. So those initial years of bonds, I didn't really have them with my mom, with my dad. Whatever relationship that you're supposed to form, those initial relationship that you're supposed to form with your parents, that wasn't really there. And I didn't meet my mom till I was 9 years old, and that went horribly bad. It was so bad. Matter of fact, I don't really like to talk about this, but for the sake of for the sake of my purpose of this podcast, everything that I'm trying to, the whole message that I'm trying to convey in this whole thing that I've started on this podcast, I'm just going to go ahead and share it. My mother was visiting Nigeria for the first time when I was 9 years old with two of my sisters that were born in the U.S. at the time. And those 2 weeks went so bad. And I remember the very first day I set my eyes on my mother, I got in trouble, because I was messing with my sister's hair, and she yelled at me and yelled at my sister. And even though as a 9-year-old, I didn't really understand understand. I couldn't really compartmentalize what was going on back then. But also in retrospect, when I look back at it, that was that was not the healthiest way for a mother to handle a conflict, with a 9-year-old kid that you've never seen before. And the biggest issue I had back then, even prior to my mom coming back to Nigeria to visit me, was I couldn't understand why I was the only kid that was not born in the U.S. I was born in Nigeria. I was the only one that was born in Nigeria. I was the only one that's never been to the U.S. I was the only one that doesn't have or didn't have a U.S. passport. I was the only one that didn't live with my parents, And as a kid in Nigeria, everybody back in Nigeria basically understood that life in America is relatively much better than life in Nigeria. And I just couldn't understand why I had a father and mother who lived in a country that's supposed to be better, and I was the only one that was stuck in Nigeria, So I felt abandoned, I felt unloved, and yes, I was a kid, and I couldn't really understand the reasoning behind my parents not being there with me or me not being there with them, because things that has to do with immigration and things like that. Again, as a 9-year-old, you don't really understand it. So naturally, my mind was going crazy, and that was the initial source of my depression and not feeling loved, and things like that, feeling abandoned. And then meeting my mother for the first time at 9 years old, and how she handled that conflict on that day, the very first day that I was meeting her, kind of hit me and rubbed me the wrong way, almost reinforcing some type of fear that I had prior to even meeting her. And that was not even the worst case that happened during those 2 weeks. A whole lot of things happened during those 2 weeks that she was visiting Nigeria for the very first time. But I feel like the nail on the hammer was, or the hammer on the nail was, a few days prior to her leaving back to America, and she was yelling on top of her voice. I guess she was angry. My mom she just has this hot temper. And I remember she was telling me, in front of everybody, her family, her sister, my sisters, even though my sisters were kids, we were all kids. I mean, they were younger than me, but she was yelling at me and looking at me direct in the eyes and basically saying that I was the cause of her miserable life. My mother, in her own words, in her own way, and with the bitterness and the anger in her heart, she was just spilling what was truly in her heart, saying that, she was unfortunate enough to get sucked into a toxic relationship and toxic marriage with my father, and she was getting ready to leave my father because it wasn't what she wanted. And she found out that she was unfortunately pregnant, and she didn't want to terminate the baby because she didn't want the guilt on her. So she was forced to remain in a toxic relationship and a toxic marriage that has hunted her all throughout those years that she's been married to my father. And she was telling me word for word that I'm the cause of her miserable life. And I understand that she was angry, but there's this thing of a lot of truth to when people are angry. When you're angry, people are the most honest when they're angry, even though that anger, the truth may be a little bit amplified, but it's still the truth nonetheless. And those words ripped my soul apart. A lot of people don't understand it, and I don't expect a lot of people, anybody actually, to understand it, because I'm the one who wears the shoe. And there's something about those words coming from your mother that just rips you, that just completely destabilizes you as a human being. It just, it's one thing hearing that from your classmates or from your siblings or from your neighbors, or, getting bullied by somebody random, but coming from your mother, a woman that carried you in her womb and birthed you, you feel it's already bad enough that I had already felt ostracized prior to this experience, because I couldn't really understand why I was the anomaly, things like that. And then just having this woman who was supposed to be my mother, mind you, I have no bonds, no relationship with her whatsoever. And then all of a sudden I'm seeing this woman who's basically a stranger, and I'm trying my best to be the normal 9-year-old kid, trying to have that kind of connection that was once lost, for the most part, with this woman. And it was like within these 2 weeks of meeting her for the first time, she was further pushing me away. And those words coming from her became the severe source of my downfall for a really long time. And the next year, my family came back to Nigeria permanently, and a whole lot of things happened, but my life was not the same afterwards. I went down a dark path. I was drowning in severe depression, anxiety. It was a hot mess. It was so bad. So from the age of 10 years old, when my dad and my sisters came back to Nigeria permanently, up until the age of 15 when I moved back to America. When I moved to America, not moved back to America, when I moved to America, those 5 years, a lot of things happened. It was so bad. And even when I moved to America, I was trying so desperately to find my voice, to find myself, but I was so lost in the word. And naturally, because I didn't find those validation, those love, that affection, from my family, my immediate family, my mother, my father, brother, sister, all that, the extended family and all that, I felt like an anomaly. I felt like there was something absolutely wrong with me, and I looked into the world for that validation. And luckily for me, I played my card right. I like to thank God, for giving me opportunities and giving me the intelligence of what to do with those opportunities. So I applied myself in a way to, in an attempt to, change my fate. I went to school, I studied, and things like that, and I was quite pragmatic about it because I didn't want to be broke, especially as a black man in this country. The system is tilted against your favor, and we have to work as minorities. We have to work 2-3 times harder than white person. So I'm very glad that I developed that sense of pragmatism at a really young age. So I went to school, I took my classes, went to college, I applied myself, got good grades, transferred to college. It was not easy at all. I know I make it sound easy. There's a whole lot of things that happened to me during those years of trying so painfully to find myself and find my voice, and it was bad. But the point to the story is that as I elevated in the world rewarded me. And in spite of the fact that I was elevated in the world, I played my cards right. Like I said, there was just this huge void, this emptiness, the sense of emptiness, a sense of not good enough, not wanted, the sense of you're not supposed to be here type of thing that was always in the back of my mind. And it's in a really strange way. Again, I don't expect anyone to understand it. I believe that only people with either similar experiences or emotional intelligence will be able to understand it. But with every single path of my life, I always went back to that 9-year-old child. That 9-year-old child that my mother looked me in my eyes. Again, it's already bad enough that I don't know this woman. Those early years where your mother's there feeding you, potty training you, changing your diapers, teaching you how to talk and walk and things like that. Those very, very crucial moments of your life that your mother is supposed to be there, or your parents are supposed to be there. It's already bad enough that I missed it. But and that left a void in me. But my mind always goes back to that 9-year-old kid with the mother yelling with so much bitterness in her heart, coming from the pits of her soul, saying that you are the cause of your miserable life. And to be honest with you, that's not actually the only situation that happened between my mother and I. A whole lot of other things went down afterwards. It was always really bad, but that first initial experience, it was like a Pandora box that opened like a gate to a whole lot of other things, insecurities, not good enough, and things like that. Like I said, it's one thing to not feel good enough by your teacher, by your neighbors, but it's a whole nother thing when your mother does not approve of you. So again, going back into the word, or at least leaning into the word, seeking this validation, I went through the motions of life, but this emptiness was always there, and that's the dangerous part. My point to this podcast is basically saying that it didn't have to happen this way. Yes, even though I went into the world, I did a lot of trial and error, and my life is finally starting to stabilize right now. It didn't have to happen this way. Matter of fact, just introspecting back in my life, there's so many moments back then, within the past 10-15 years, that in a really eerie way, I didn't even realize that it was happening back then. But looking back, I just realized how easily I could have just slipped down the wrong path. The world is so vast, bigger than we realize it. I know we have the internet and people travel back and forth and things like that, so it seems like the word is there a little, but the truth is the world is so vast, and a person who is not properly prepared to face the world by their parents is just, you're preparing for a head start at failure. Yes, I made a lot of mistakes. I had a lot of trial and errors, but I was able to maneuver through. I was able to pull through, and ideally, it shouldn't have had to be like that. It should have to be me coming from a loving family that prepared me to face the world. And this is why I'm making this episode, that it is extremely important that you invest in family, and family here does not need to be blood. Like I said earlier, we're not all blessed with the privilege of having loving mother, loving father, loving, like those basic things in life. Raising a kid is not just feeding them and giving them clothes to wear, things like that. There's way more that we human beings we need for survival: attention, love, things like that. And when you don't get those from your initial caregivers, your parents, you become broken. Unfortunately, you can pass that brokenness down to your kids, and that becomes like a perpetual curse. It becomes generational curse. If you're blessed, if you're lucky enough to have been raised in a loving home where even though things were not necessarily perfect, you had the in the traditional sense that your parents were there, you had that initial bond, that relationship with your mom, your dad, you had enough to eat, you had a place to sleep, and, minor things like that. You don't have to have been born to an elite family or whatnot. Consider yourself blessed. Truly, truly consider yourself blessed, because you may not necessarily feel what I feel right now, or at least what I felt back then, and know that is a blessing, that you don't know what that feels like. Having that sense of neglect, that sense of not feeling good enough, that sense of feeling like a loser, especially one that is brought upon you by your own parents, the people who birthed you. They're supposed to protect you, when the world is attacking you. But for the people like me who didn't have that blessing, it is very extremely important that you invest in family. And the reason why I say that is because this life is not for the birds. Seriously. As a matter of fact, it hurts me when I see a lot of parents raise their kids as though that, this life is Disneyland. This is not Disneyland. This is not a child's play. There's a lot of evil. There's a lot of funk in the air. Seriously, both physically, mentally, and spiritually, things are going to get much worse. And I'm not trying to sound like a pessimist. I'm just keeping it real. Again, observing patterns. Things are going to get worse. Health care is going to get much, much worse. And to be honest with you, I feel, me personally, that's just my opinion, I feel like there's an active agenda to perpetuate these problems, so to speak. There's an active agenda because somebody's capitalizing on the ignorance of people. There's an active agenda to keep people dark. Things are not exactly as you see. Not everything that is shiny is actually good. I don't know how to explain this without going too deep and get myself into trouble. This country, it is so easy to get sucked into things that we've been brainwashed to think as success. A lot of these things that we've been brainwashed and socially conditioned to consider as success, these are not success. These are not blessings from God. These are curses from the pits of hell. It is extremely important that we wake up. We are strong. I think even the Bible said something along the line. I'm not religious at all. I try to stay away from religion. Everyone who knows me knows I'm more spiritual than religious. But I think the Bible says something about the enemy comes at night. Night in this represents your vulnerable stage or state. When you're sleeping, the devil is lurking, waiting for you to slip so that the devil can penetrate and do whatever he's got to do. You know what I mean? So it is extremely important that you stay awake, you stay alert, and you're not going to be able to do it alone because we're naturally social beings. It is extremely important that you find people you consider as family, people you can create a communion with. I would say that people who are really intelligent, or at least some type of, have some type of intelligence, or what's the word, spiritual awakening, usually keep a really small circle. like a really tight circle. The smaller, the better, because it's not quantity, it's quality. Invest in quality relationships. Again, if you haven't listened to my episode where I talked about loneliness, I'm gonna attach a link down below, or put like a hyperlink. Go ahead and check it out. Do not find people, or do not try to fit people into your life out of loneliness. Go through your spiritual walk, go through your soul searching. Again, like I said before, the path of soul searching is often lonely sometimes, and often quite painful. Go through that. Dive into yourself, open your heart to spirituality. And I believe that the right people for you would definitely show up. Invest your energy in family. Life is much easier. Life is much better. Life is much tolerable when you have the right people for you. These people become your family. You know what I mean? Mental health, like I mentioned in one of my other episodes, is bound to get much significantly worse. Believe it or not. Depression, anxiety, a whole lot of things. And I believe that if you've been following my episodes, I believe that this is just a evidence of the break that we've had with the human race. We've broken from the spirituality that we are naturally inclined for, and we're desperately patronizing our physicality in a desperate attempt to fill in that void that once was once occupied by spirituality. And those things will never bring happiness. You will always feel empty. You will die, go to your grave horribly dissatisfied. There's a lot of people, there's loads of books that have been written by people on their deathbeds. Matter of fact, this past weekend I was in Austin. I was talking to my good friend. We were talking about Steve Jobs, and he talked about how on his deathbed he regretted his life. He felt like he didn't really live. Yes, he's a legend, and because of him, thanks to him we have Apple and all this stuff, but really the man, he did not live to his fullest potential. You need people who can wake you up from this slumber. I believe that there's a conscious effort. The devil is working overtime. And I know I sound crazy, and I know I sound like some type of cliche. I know for sure, but this is real. Everything that happened to me, I believe it was meant to be this way for me in a way, because this is just part of my story, because I had to go through that in order for me to be awakened the way I was awakened. I feel like I wouldn't have had it any other way, to be honest with you. But it's unfortunate that I had to go through that, because the brokenness that was seeped into me came from my parents. My parents, they failed to heal from their own brokenness, and they passed it down to me. And unfortunately, if I didn't heal from my brokenness, or at least if I'm not looking to heal from my brokenness, if I do have kids, I'm going to pass those down to my kids, and that could be very dangerous. You keep up that loop that which is very unhealthy. But one of the ways to survive this craziness is family. Invest your energy in the right people. Invest your time in the right people you call family. And like I said earlier, there's blood that isn't family, and there's family that is blood. I believe that, me personally, I like to categorize people that I know into 3 different categories. The first group is people I know. The second group is people I call friends, and the third group is people I call family. My ultimate goal is family. Majority of people that you're going to meet in life, at least the people with the positive energy, are going to fall into the category of people you know. These are people that are positive or neutral. They don't really bother you. They don't really, they don't pose a threat. You can do with or without them. And then you have the people you call friends. I've already given my definition of friends in my previous episodes, but then on the third and on the top of the food chain is people you call family. Family is forever. Family is loving. Family is understanding, even in the harshest of situations. Family is direct and stern when needed, yet loving. Like when you're out of line, when you're acting a fool, when you're doing something that's probably going to lead to your detriment. A family will look you in the eyes with a pinky, like Wendy Williams says, and set you straight. They're not afraid to pull you back on the freeway, basically, so to speak. Family is forgiving. Not out of guilt. They won't forgive you out of guilt or out of obligation, but because they genuinely see the bigger picture that even you may not currently see at the moment. They will be forgiven. Family is a huge factor to your path of salvation. Seriously, I know I'm using these words, salvation and things like that, and that makes me sound religious. But trust me, that this is me speaking from a much spiritual level. As a spiritualist, I believe that there's more to the physical than we know. You know, like the spiritual, your spirit lives on after you're done with this life, right? With all the bullshit that is in this world right now, it is extremely important that you stay clean. Do not let this none of this distraction pollute your soul. And family, if you have the good amount of people, the right kind of people in your family to close up that niche, right? These people will keep you sane. They will see things that you're not able to see. You will see things for them that they're not able to see, and vice versa. It's sort of like when I was in the military, and at night, before we would form cliques, right? And before we went to bed, when we camped, we took turns to be awake. Like I would be awake from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. and then I go to sleep, and somebody else wakes up and goes from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. and then like that, that you want to form that kind of that type of security with people you trust, people you love, people who love you, people who that love is genuine, not disingenuous energy. I'm telling you, if you want to know, if you want to know a little bit more about this, just go ahead and check out the episode that I made on loneliness, and because I broke it down as to things that you should stay away from when you're picking people in your life. And I would also add that whoever you're going to be adopting into your life, I feel like this is a no-brainer anyway. There should be a reflection of who you are. Seriously, I've talked about this multiple times in previous episodes. Do your soul search, do your homework, find out what makes you tick. Who are you as a person? Look deep within, and again, like I've always said multiple times, the path of self-discovery, the path of soul searching is often lonely, and sometimes you will hit loneliness while looking within and try to figure yourself out. You cannot understand the world unless you understand yourself. If you understand yourself, if you genuinely understand who you are, your purpose and all that, then the right kind of people will follow. You will know the right people that match what you're looking for, that will bring out the best in you, and those are the people that you should be focused. Again, that episode, loneliness, breaks it down. I think I did a really good job breaking that down. It's a little lengthy, but if you really care for this kind of stuff, go check it out. And then finally, I would say that whoever you're going to be adopting as family, it's very important to know that these people will not have unhealthy walls. And I'm going to talk about these walls. Believe it or not, one of the things that I look for in a person every time I meet somebody, right? I do it really subconsciously without even realizing that I do it. I always ask myself, is this person a long-term type of person? Is there a potential for longevity, or is this like for the moment type of situation, or situationship rather, right? And one of the things that I look for in a person is walls. I know it really sounds strange, but I like and I prefer people who have some type of walls. To me, the walls is a representation of your experience in life, right? It's unfortunate to say, but the truth is, the evil in the world has hurt every single one of us, for sure. But not everyone has survived it. Unfortunately, some people have let it consume them, unfortunately, right? However, the rest who have and continue to survive it have become stronger, because what doesn't kill you definitely makes you stronger. I'm sure we've all heard that statement. But this survival comes at a cost. This life burns. This life is not for the birds. You've been through a lot of struggles. You've been through a lot of things, and then you've learned from them. It's sort of like your antivirus, right? And if you don't have any type of antivirus, it means that you're either not burned yet, which is dangerous, or you have been burned but you didn't learn from it. So I like to think of walls as a positive thing, right? The people you're going to be adopted into your life, they should have healthy walls, not unhealthy walls. A healthy wall would be, for example, a person that was born and raised in an abusive family is going to have some walls. They're going to have some trust issues and blah 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 and blah, right? Because they've been disappointed multiple times and this and that. But those walls are justifiable. It makes sense from a logical point of view. Yeah, it makes sense, right? As opposed to somebody you're you're calling a friend or a family, but you don't really necessarily understand where this wall is coming from. The energy is off, the chemistry is off. You can't really understand it. You can't decipher it. That is not healthy at all. It feels like the relationship is very disingenuous. Every time you're with this person, you feel like you're walking an eggshell. You should not be adopting somebody like that into your family, as a family, especially when this particular person is not making a conscious effort to communicate with you or keep you in the loop, to make you understand where their behavior, their actions, or whatever it is, whatever wall it is that you notice from this person, where they're coming from. Even when you do try to reach out, when you do try to understand, when you do put your effort, when you do put your energy to try to understand where these walls are coming from, but each time it's like you're hitting a brick wall. That is not a family. That is an unhealthy wall. An unhealthy wall is a type of wall that you cannot decipher. It's one that you cannot understand. There's no logical or reasonable explanation behind it, even after you've tried to understand it, and they fail to communicate to you or with you. Family is everything. Invest in family. Again, mental health, physical health, and spiritual health, these are going to get much worse. For the spiritual health, please check out my video on war against spirituality, where I broke it down. On a spiritual level, there's an active agenda to distract us from the bigger picture. Somebody's, I don't know, with the 1% or whatever, somebody is capitalizing on people's ignorance. Sheep mentality is a thing, and somebody is off to make sure that people remain blind. People remain spiritually blind. I would say confidently that I'm very blessed enough to have found a couple of people who I have adopted into my life as family, that I can confidently say they are family. That's part of the reason why I moved away from California, where I used to live, and now I live in Texas, and I feel much better. I feel like I was meant to be here. Texas definitely was my opportunity to start all over again, a clean slate. I came here for work. I came here to live. I invested my time and my energy and my money, to settle down here. And I've adopted a few people into my life, very few people who match me on the same wavelength, people who add to my life, and people who I add to their life, because together is growth. This is another thing too. Again, I talked about all these things in details in that video, that loneliness video. Please watch it. Please. If you think that I'm making any type of sense, go and check out that loneliness video, because I broke down a lot of things. If they are not adding value to your life and they don't support you, there is no reason why they should be in your contact. Seriously. Do not force yourself into somebody else's life. Again, to reiterate, the point of this episode is basically to share my experience and hopefully inspire people to think outside the box and invest your time and your energy for things that actually really do matter. I understand that we've been sold this facade of the American dream, the big car, the big house, and this and that, and a lot of people invest their time and energy looking for these little petty things that we've been brainwashed to think will buy happiness, when happiness comes in different forms. Family is extremely important. Family will save your life and will literally save your soul. The right kind of people. But it is extremely important that you invest your energy in the right people. Do not give your time. Do not give your energy to the wrong people. Look for the right signs. Go look in the right direction. Look in the right places, and you will be glad you did. But the only way to do this is if you worked on yourself. Work in yourself first. Look in the mirror. Keep working on yourself and keep healing. The distractions is so much. We're constantly bombarded with this distraction on a daily basis, because there's a conscious effort to keep us in the dark. But keep healing. I'm healing myself. Every day is a healing process. I don't think it ever ends. It's sort of like going to the gym, right? You don't just go to the gym and then you stop going. You have to continue going. Same thing to your physical, your mental, and your spiritual needs nurturing on a daily basis in order for you to be strong. But you need to catch yourself first. Go on a spiritual path. Go on a soul search and do your homework as a human being. Find who you are as a person, your purpose, and all that. I also made I think a month or two ago, I made a video about purpose, why you need to invest in purpose. I'm going to also attach the link. Find your purpose, find yourself, find the truest person, your truest identity, and find people who can complement that, who can bring out the best of you, people who you can grow together, people who are, the energy is very genuine, people who are not condescending, people who don't look down on you, who don't judge you for all the wrong reasons, people who claim to say one thing but then they do the complete opposite. Invest your energy in the right type of person, and I swear to you, your life will be much better. So many things that would normally bother most people would not bother you as much, because you would be on a whole nother path. But anyway, I think I'm done rambling for this episode. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you're enjoying my podcast, please make sure to download, subscribe, share with your friends and family. If you're new to my YouTube channel, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell notification so that anytime I upload a video, you'll be the very first to be notified. Please check me out on Instagram at Let's Talk with Uche. I'm on Facebook at Let's Talk About Us with Uche. My website is www.letstalkaboutus.org. That's www.letstalkaboutus.org. If you do want to show support or words of encouragement or even share your story, please send me an email at letstalkwithuche@gmail.com. Thank you very much, and I look forward to talking to you again in the next episode.